a little bit about what was happening at the ranch, but what an opportunity to work with people who have a passion for helping families heal and grow. Excuse me. Helping families heal and grow, which you'll see on our posters and on our pamphlets. And so we are rebuilding. It's a new Broken Arrow Ranch. I think we can safely say that we've got some of the old who are still there with the experience and the know-how. We've got new house parents, we've got a new CEO, we've got a new ranch manager who also happens to be related to the Horeschuk family. We've got our grandparents. We have an intern, Janelle, with us this year, coming to experience the work that happens out there. We've got different kinds of critters down there than we'd ever expected. Some named Emma, if you can believe that. Yes, Emma, Maddie, and Walter. And I think some of you have seen the pictures of those crazy llamas that have actually, they have drawn more attention to the ranch than I think all the publicity we could have put out there. But we want to thank especially the Community Baptist Church for the support that they have for us. And many of you may not know this, but Pastor Joel here is a computer genius. He's actually doing our website for us. He helped us get a new one up and running. Penny is helping us with some of the kind of administrative things once in a while, getting things submitted to government officials and so on and so forth. We have lots of support from this church, from people donating and contributing towards the support and the sustainability of the ranch. We are working towards the ranch being self-sustainable to a point that we can bring people in without there being financial burdens on them. It's difficult to run anything these days without finances. And so we've taken great steps in that direction now, and hopefully in the near future we're able to continue that way. By having the staff that we have in place, we believe as a board and as a director that God is working if we just keep taking that step of faith. So I won't take up any more of your time, but just want to thank you all for having us here this weekend and for the opportunity to share with you today. Thank you.
What happens when I bring too much stuff? Stuff I'm not even going to use. I'm going to use my Bible. I'm using my notebook. This is just in case. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Fantastic. My name is Adam, and it's a delight to be back here again. It's been, I can't believe this, it's been like a year and a half since I've been in Swift Current to visit you folks. The last time we connected was at family camp. This is August 2016. So, man, it's crazy. It's a joy, and thank you for being. Sorry, thanks for having me back for such a great weekend. Across the generations, this is a really unique topic for me to be engaging in, because the Lord has actually been working in my heart pretty significantly about what it looks like to do intergenerational ministries. And that might sound unique coming from a young guy, but when I was, when you guys met me, when we were connecting, I was doing intergenerational ministries, but I was doing it upward. So I was pastoring at First Baptist Church in Moose Jaw, where the majority of the church was 70 years old and older. And so I was trying to figure out how to minister to a different kind of generation. And then I went and worked for Briarcrest, and you guys knew me a little bit while I was working at Briarcrest and working with college students and trying to figure out their questions and sort of their struggles and figuring out where they're at in life and how God's leading them and pursuing them. And then I got this call from a buddy of mine who invited me to go to Cornerstone Christian School, where I'm now the chaplain for a K-12 school. And so in the last 10 years, it's been everything from, camp ministry to seniors ministry to small group ministry, and now to young adult ministry, and then and now into elementary and middle school and high school ministry. So, I don't know if this was just a God thing or whatever the case might be, but this whole idea of what it means to do life intergenerationally and reach across the generational lines has been something I've been reading about. It's been something I've been learning about. It's been something that I've been really passionate about in my own journey, trying to figure out who I am, what my values are as millennials, and then Gen Xers are a little bit above me, and then there's the boomers and the builders, and then down below there's the Gen Zs now, and we're getting into the iGens and whatever else we're going to call kids like Lucas and Aurora in another few years. But it's just been this really fascinating journey. And I guess where I want to lead out is, with missions conferences and mission weekends and these kinds of things, there's always that added pressure of like, oh man, here we go again. We're going to get another weekend, but like adding something else to our plate, being challenged to do something, and I guess there's a part of me that wants to be able to say, friends, this is a lot easier than it needs to be, or than we believe it to be. It's a lot easier. Okay, if there's anything that I've learned in just the last 18 months, I'll just focus in on there, is that doing intergenerational ministry and engaging the next generation in our faith into ultimately our mission work. The mission of the church, it's easier than we anticipate. It takes a lot of time. Not gonna lie, it takes a lot of time. It actually takes a little bit of money, but it's not hard work. Okay, and we're gonna talk a little bit about why it's not hard work throughout this session this afternoon. Because this session this afternoon is really all about just building intentional relationships. If there was one phrase, if there was one sort of thing, one kind of key takeaway, you can call it mentoring, you can call it small groups, you can call it youth ministry, but sort of to put it underneath this umbrella of intentional relationships, building intentional relationships with students, with other people, you're like, I want my admission money back. Really? Like, that's what you're giving me, Adam? Intentional relationships is how we do this. It's how we build opportunities, and it's how we create that space where we engage in the lives of the students below us. To sort of lead out, this has sort of been the story of God from the beginning. If you remember Deuteronomy chapter 6. And it talks about, hey guys, love the Lord love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, all your mind, and then it goes on to talk about when you teach these to your kids, impress them upon your children, talk about them when you rise and when you sit, when you go out, when you walk along the road, write them on the doorposts of your home. Be intentional about these messages whenever you can, and impress them and engrave them in the hearts of your kids. I think one of the things that I've been wrestling with and sort of working through my own heart is that, man, like, there's a lot of really fun things to do for the church, right? There's all kinds of great opportunities for you and I to get engaged in. We can go serve at camp. We can go do urban-based ministry work. We can do more vacation-based mission work. We can travel the country, we can travel the globe, and we can enjoy all of these kinds of things. But there's a part of me that wants to challenge us to think, what does it look like if we actually are sacrificing the mission field right in our living room, right in our kitchens, in order to go overseas, in order to go do something that's a little bit more appealing, a little bit more attractive. When I took this role at Cornerstone Christian School, I was having some serious conversations with my mentors and sort of an advisory group that I have built around me for discernment and for wisdom, because my life was on a trajectory. I was thinking, okay, God, I'm finishing my master's. A couple of my mentors think I've got potential for PhD work. Probably could be a professor. There's opportunities for advancement in my career. I was traveling Western Canada. I was enjoying the network and the opportunities that were coming my way. And then when this opportunity came to go work in a K-12 Christian school, one of my advisors that I was pretty close to at the time just challenged me, and I understood his heart at the time, but the message that he gave me, or the moment of pause, was just a simple phrase. He said, Adam, it's a little beneath you, don't you think? And I just remember pausing to think about, if we do not pass on the faith to the next generation, that's it. We're done. And so maybe, I understand, again, on a missions weekend, we want to have a global mindset, but there's a part of me that's like, you and I have a role right in front of us. Every day, I'm reminded at 3:30 in the morning, when my little girl comes running into my room to wake me up in the middle of the night, I'm reminded. Not in that moment. That's not my initial thought right there. Just so you know, I'm not that spiritual. But I'm reminded that I have this obligation, this incredible privilege and responsibility. That as much as there's 275 students in our school, or there's 35,000 people in our city, or there's 1 million people in our province, or there's 30 million people in our country, or there's millions and millions and millions of people all over our world that don't know Jesus, we have an incredible responsibility right in front of us to invest and pass on the faith to our students that live with us every single day. That there's students inside of your churches, there's students inside of your businesses, there's students inside of your networks right now that don't know the gospel, that don't know the living hope of Jesus Christ in their life, and we need to think about ways that we can be building relationships with them first. I think it's important, right? I mean, we probably know this, but when we hear that challenge, that call out of Acts chapter 1, it's sort of concentric circles. You start closer to home, and then we move away from the closer regions that we're in. But man, it's nice to go to Hawaii. Right? Especially around this time of year, right? We were joking the other day. I think, we're feeling like a satellite campus right now, right? It's like anything in Costa Rica. Here we go. It's all good. We're going to do this. But how do we live in these intentional relationships? I want to challenge us to think that the only work of the church is to multiply itself. The only work of the church, go therefore and make disciples. If we are not growing, if we are not pouring out, if we are not increasing in number, then we have a problem. And the church is always just one generation away from extinction. George Barna said that a bunch of years ago. And I think it's just really important that we keep thinking about ways that we pull in our youth. And it's not rocket science. It's just not rocket science. It's about making time, and it's about making space. If I was just to leave those two words with you, making time and making space. Mentoring, you see, is a different kind of hospitality. We use the word of hospitality and the work of hospitality as a church in a really significant way. We have hospitality committees. When I was at the church, we had a whole team just of people that would make food for meetings that nobody came to. And so we'd have this hospitality team, right, where they'd come in and they'd perform, they'd do all kinds of incredible work. And we want people to come to us. We want relationships to happen on our terms, on our space, in our sort of circles. But mentoring is a different kind of hospitality. It's a hospitality of the heart. It's a hospitality that says, not just come into my house, but come into my life, come into my heart, and let me care and take interest and deep sort of passion in who you are and where you are and what it is that's going on in your world. You actually never have to have a student into your house to practice hospitality. of the heart. You never have to do that. I have had a mentor in my life. His name is Wayne. He's actually not just a mentor anymore. He's become one of my best friends. Because over the 13 years that we've known each other now, I've only ever been in his house twice, and that's to help him move. But if you believe this, and I do the math, and it's absolutely mind-blowing, Wayne and I have met together every week or every 2 weeks for the last 13 years. There's probably not been a month in the last 13 years that Wayne and I haven't connected in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's at the golf course, or over coffee, or over lunch, or drives to his cabin. He's like, man, I need to build some walls or do some work up at the cabin this week, and want you to come for a drive with me for a few hours. It's about seizing moments, regular moments, to redeem time. This is sort of the whole challenge of what was going on in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 6 and Exodus, when God was giving the sort of instructions about the Passover and saying, when you do these things and your children ask you, what's the meaning behind of these things? It's about creating these regular, ordinary moments, these regular, sort of redeemable moments. I want to use that word, redeemable moments, redeemable opportunities in your life, where you can just pull somebody into your life, or pull a student into your life, pull a young adult into your life, pull a friend into your life, and say, hey, let's go hunting together, let's go drive together, let's build a garage together, whatever it is that you're doing. Is there a reason that you're doing it alone? Or is there somebody that you can be pulling into your world to have life on life overlap? We've got to have that connection. There's got to be life on life. The gospel is only transferred from one person to another, right? Christ in me needs to become Christ in you. My youth pastor did the same thing for me when I was working at camp ministry. He'd wake me up 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. Be like, Adam, come on, I need to run into the camp. What do you got to do? Check the heat. I don't care. What doesn't matter? And we grab a cappuccino from the Esso outside of St. John's, Newfoundland, and we'd drive for 45 minutes to an hour out to the camp. We'd spend maybe 45 minutes at the camp, and then we'd spend another 45 minutes driving home. And some of those relationships, just some of those times and connections, obviously meant the world to me in terms of just building relationships and wanting to pour out and creating that kind of space and time. It's so, so, so important that we create these kind of redeemable moments. So I want to give you guys a little bit of challenge here. I want to give you guys a little bit of an opportunity to interact. This is also so that you don't fall asleep while I'm talking to you. And so I want you to think, just maybe in your tables or in teams of 2 or 3 or whatever the case might be, what are some of the redeemable moments in your world in which you could pull a friend, a colleague, a student, a son, a daughter, a grandchild? What are some of the ways that you can redeem your moments of your day, redeem moments of your world, and pull some students into just the things that you do? Why do you do the things that you do alone by yourself? Are there things that you could be pulling students in? I'm just going to give you guys like 60 seconds to talk amongst yourself and think about redeemable moments that you can be pulling people in. Sweet. Well, I know that this is not always the most comfortable thing in the world to do, but I'd love to hear some of your ideas around redeemable moments. Like, are there things in your guys' world in terms of redeemable opportunities that you can engage people in? Awesome. Yeah, for sure. And those happen? They do? Perfect. Fantastic. What about you guys here in the... Yeah. For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Middle table here? Sorry? Absolutely getting to know neighbors? Yeah. How do we do that? Like, it's kind of like, hi, my neighbor. Like, I just pour some milk and eggs, eh? For sure. Right? Yeah, just so what kind of redeemable moments are there in terms of like ways that you guys can build relationship with your neighbors? Have them for coffee, for sure. Just get to know them, right? Yep. Go knock on their door. Hey, my kids are the kids, running around this place. Sorry about my cat. So that was a next door neighbor moment. We bought a cat. Her name is Tinkerbell. I'm sure Roy has maybe told you about her. She's one of the 5 girls that live in our house. And so because there's Tinkerbell and Violet, and then Mom and Julia and Aurora. And so there's 5 girls. Anyways, doesn't matter. And so Tinkerbell was getting outside. She wasn't supposed to get outside. We adopted her from the Humane Society, and we had to sign a contract saying she wasn't going to go outside. But then she escapes, and then she comes back, and then she escaped again, and she came back, and so eventually we're like, okay, whatever, she's an outdoor cat. And so, so then the next day, this is not the way to meet your neighbor. My neighbor comes over to my house, and he says, hey, so did you guys get a cat? And I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, just so you know, I found the cat sitting on top of my BMW convertible the other day as a soft cover. And so he's just like, if there's claw marks on top, it's going to be an expensive fix. She became an indoor cat pretty quick. And so, anyways, it's all good. Hey, my name is Adam. Yeah, here's $2,000 for your car, right? It's man, the fences. It's all good. Redeemable moments. What are the ways that you can? What are redeemable moments for you guys right here? What are ways that you can? Sorry, shovel snow. Shovel your neighbor's snow. I like you. Can I live next to you? No, just kidding. Anyone right here? Or up front? Inviting your friends? For sure. Yeah. Not now. Not winter camping. Not winter camping. That's how we repel friends in Saskatchewan, for sure. Guys, I mean, again, it's not rocket science, but let me challenge you here. It's inconvenient, right? It's inconvenient. It's inconvenient because it's quicker for me to do something by myself, right? I think about this as little as this. Right now, my kids are 5 and 7, and it's I got to run to the store, and the question that they ask all the time is, can I come with you? And I'm I just literally need, I just need to run in and get milk. It's 30 seconds. And this 2-minute experience turns into a 20-minute adventure, right? and so, but it's about redeemable moments. It's about creating that space and that opportunity. Because if we don't have time and space, if we don't have life on life, I can almost guarantee you, doctrine can pass, information can pass, and yes, God can use that stuff, and He can redeem even our lack of redemption, but it's life on life. It's your life on their life, and then that's why the gospel and the Old Testament talks about when your kids see you do these things, when they see why you do these things, they're going to ask that question, hey, God, Dad, what's this about? Mom, what's this about? Church, what's this about? Why do we do this? There's incredible moments. Things even like keeping your kids in the service, creating youth-friendly services, not just that we're friendly to youth. There's a huge difference. I'm going to challenge you. There's a huge difference between being friendly to youth versus youth-friendly services or youth-friendly churches where we actually create space and time and opportunity for students to be engaged, to be involved in your worship, to be involved in your leading. I remember being a youth. I was in grade 6. I could barely play the piano, and my pastor said, man, anytime you want to play the piano during offering, go for it. I could hardly read. It's like, if you want to read the scriptures, go for it. And just creating space and time and opportunity for me to be involved in the church service. And not just me, but anybody who really wanted to use their talents, gifts and abilities. Little things like this. Do you guys keep your kids in the service during communion Sundays? Every Sunday. Every Sunday? They're here during the service? Beautiful. Love that. Right? We just started going to a church. Well, not just started going to a church. We went to a church about 3 years ago now. And instead of having a full kids program all service long, the kids on Communion Sunday stay in the service until after communion is done, and then they go to their programs, right? So we're having these conversations and we're talking about communion, and my son literally, it's like right out of the text, Lucas is like, "What's this about, Dad? Can I have that?" Not yet. Right? And then we have this conversation about faith and life and trust in Jesus Christ and personal Savior and Lordship and who Jesus is and what He did for us. And then we begin to have this conversation. And over the course of 3 to 6 to 8 months, he ends up coming back to me just on a Friday night. We're sitting in our living room, and he says, "Dad, I want to make Jesus Lord of my life." And just, it was almost like I could almost trace the conversation right back to a Sunday morning we were just taking communion. It's just another Sunday morning where we're taking communion. But we're living out these practices in front of our kids in order to create these opportunities of conversations. And then we've got to lean into those, right? Another time, my son, Lucas, was asking me, why did Jesus have to die on the cross? I actually have my financial planner coming over. He's also my best friend. So we had my financial planner coming over at 7 o'clock. Bedtime was like, right there around 7 o'clock. So I told my buddy, I'll be about 15 minutes late. It's, 7 o'clock. I'm putting my kid down. We're praying. And then he just pops the question. He's like, so why did Jesus have to die? And I'm like, oh, man. Financial planner, 15 minutes. It's like, you know what? We're going to wait. It's not a big deal. We're going to create opportunity. It's inconvenient. It's inconvenient to redeem time sometimes, and we got to create that time and that space in order for us to engage in the lives of our students around here. Here's my challenge. Here's where this flips on our head. We believe in an incarnational gospel. Right? We believe in the incarnation of the gospel, but we actually resist an incarnational ministry. Right? We believe in the incarnational gospel, but we resist an incarnational ministry. Part of the challenge, one of the reasons why I think we resist an incarnational ministry is because we expect that every meaningful engagement, every time we have a conversation, that every episode will have some sort of immediate life-changing result. Right? As I'm working with students day in and day out, I'm realizing that it's about every month. It's like every 30 days, one student in one grade wants to have one conversation that has some sort of traction about life, faith, hope, struggles, sin, decisions, discernment, whatever the case is. I think one of the things that we need to think about as we engage in our youth and engage in our culture is that we're not developing machines. We're developing humans. We're in the business of human formation. And, we're more used to the idea of programming than we might realize. I tell my house how warm I want it to be when I want it to be it. I tell my phone when to turn on and when to turn off. I tell my computer exactly what I want it to do. I tell my car, right, exactly the settings that I want it to have. My TV, I can reprogram it, and it does all this kind of stuff without me even thinking about it. My coffee maker goes off every morning at 6:20. It's absolutely beautiful. Social media, I can choose what I like, what I don't like, what I want to see, what I want to see less of. But for the most part, I tell my world how I want to interact with it. and how I wanted to interact with me. But those students, gosh, no matter how many times I tell them, right? No matter how many times I tell them, no matter how many ways I tell them, they just won't comply, right? They just won't fall into line, right? And that's because it's not about compliance. We're not actually trying to build compliance. If we're trying to build compliance in mission work or engagement or church service, we're missing the mark completely, because it's about faithfulness. And the only way that faithfulness is transferred from one person to another is life on life. So we need to think differently about how we're engaging in relationships and how we're forming students. It's not about head. It's not about head. Okay, it's way less about head. If you guys don't believe me, just indulge in their world for just a second. They wake up and they look at a screen, and man, we look at screens. We have more information available to us today than at any day, at any season, in any era of our history. Okay, I heard this statistic just a few months ago when we were at a student leadership retreat, that if you took all the information that was put on the internet just last night, in just the last 24 hours, so from 2 o'clock yesterday to 2 o'clock today, all the information, the new information, not any of the information that was there before that, just from 2 o'clock yesterday to 2 o'clock today, all the information that was brand new to the internet last night and today, and you put it on CDs, you guys remember CDs, right? And you put it on, burn it onto CDs, it would go from here to Mars. Okay? It would go from, like, seriously, it would go from here to Mars. Like, there's so much information being produced in our world, and our students have literally these massive, like, hyper-fast mega computers in their fingertips. They're being preached at all the time. They're constantly getting information all the time. All the time. They don't need information. They need life on life. They need transformation. They need faithfulness. Here's how it works. One of my dear friends, parenting his teenager, Christian school, Christian home, everybody loved Jesus. He was a camp director. And he has this drive, this conversation. He's chatting with his daughter on the way in the car one day, and she says, Dad, I'm not so sure about this Jesus thing. Of course, in that moment, like, every parent's like, freak out, stay on the road, right? It's like, I'm just not sure about this whole Jesus thing. And so he just sort of says, you know what? All right, it's okay. Like, we want you to make your own decisions. We want you to come to understand faith in your own terms, that kind of stuff. And so he just kind of kept driving, and he just lived out faith and redeemable moments and kept living out his own faithfulness in front of his students and in front of his daughter. And sometime later, she was sitting in the same car. They were having the same drive. And she looks at him and says, Dad, I can get past Jesus in almost everybody else. I can explain them away in my friends. They live these inconsistent lives. I can explain them away in my teachers because they just get paid to do what they do at Christian schools. I can explain them away at church. But I cannot get past Jesus in you. I just can't get past Jesus in you. I see him in you all the time, and I can't explain him away in you. And it's just that, it's friends, I mean, it sounds crazy, and it sounds so simplistic, that it's just life on life consistency. That your life in front of other people's lives make all the difference in the world. And so when we think about what it means to do intergenerational ministries or reach across the generations and to work with our students, it's just not rocket science. It's making the decision daily, weekly, to create space and time for you to be with them. And for you to be faithful, for you to have your own sort of consistency in order. And part of your consistency is asking for forgiveness. Part of your own consistency in working in front of students is learning how to ask them for forgiveness and learning how to communicate your own shortcomings and your own shortfalls. Hemorrhaging faith. Anybody familiar with the study of hemorrhaging faith? There was a huge study done out of Lethbridge, all across Canada, that talked about why young adults are leaving the church. And so if you were born in the church between the ages, like if you were raised in the church between the ages of 1 and 5, they wanted to figure out where you are today between 18 and 34. And they discovered that 1 in 3 students who were kind of raised in the church stay in the church, okay? And there's a whole bunch of stuff that came out of that. But one of the unique things that real young adults and young people are looking for is authenticity and genuineness in people's faith. And when there's a faith with no mistakes, it's not genuine. When there's a faith with no forgiveness, when there's a faith with no admittance or confession, it's just not genuine. It might be legit for 3 weeks. It might be legit for 3 months or 3 years, even if you're having a good season with the Lord. But eventually, we want to have these conversations where we begin to realize that I need forgiveness just as much as this little guy who's sitting in front of me. And teaching our students and teaching our next generation what it means for you and I to rely on the forgiveness and the hope of God in our own lives is what it looks like to pass that on. And so it's just that consistency piece of every day you and I living our lives in front of and with another person. And so what are those redeemable moments? What are those creative opportunities, those spaces that you can engage in? One last thought just before we sort of make a transition here is that we need to also consider where we are and how we approach sort of ministry formation or leadership development, to use a phrase from John Maxwell. Basically, he talks about 5 different levels of leadership. And so this is sort of this, again, journey that you and I need to be thinking about in terms of how we do church and how we do life and how we engage people in ministry and what it is that we're actually inviting people into. He says the very first level of leadership is positional leadership, that people will follow you because you have a title. And so often we sort of, think about that in terms of, I'm the pastor, or I'm this kind of a leader, or this committee member, or this teacher. Man, our students have so many hierarchies in their worlds, again, that, they're looking around and just saying, man, there's so many things that I have to do because of the different positions that they engage in their world. The next piece is the permission leader. So they follow you because you give them permission or you grant them opportunities to be involved or whatever the case might be. The third position of leadership is production. It's where people look at you and you realize, oh man, you're a person who gets stuff done, and so I want to follow you. I want to be involved with what you're doing because you're a get it done kind of person. And it's really exciting to be with you, and it's exciting to kind of be a part of the kinds of things that you do. That's where most people stop. We kind of hit that production level, and we live a really great 30, 40 years, and then we kind of end it, right? Because we hit retirement, or we get tired, or we get old, or whatever the case might be. But we can't do the things that we've done anymore. But the fourth level of leadership is where I want to challenge us to go to. The fourth level of leadership is about people development. And this is about you and I actually looking to develop the people around us. And people begin to follow you not because of what you do, but because of how they change because of your time and investment in them. And if you've ever had a chance to actually develop another person, to see them come alive, to see their skills grow and develop, it is absolutely it's intoxicating to see another person get courage and grow in their own skills and their own abilities. But here's what it means. It means that I've got to be less on the platform. I've got to choose to give that space and that time away to other people. I'll never forget it. The day that my camp director looked at me and said, "All right, Adam, I got to go to St. John's, which is about a 50-minute drive away, and I got to take care of some stuff, got to do some business work. You're in charge." So this was before cell phones, and And he said, just go. Like, you got it. If people need help, if people have problems, if people have questions, like, you're it. And just that sheer kind of realization that he was delegating all that kind of authority and power into my own journey, and creating those spaces, creating those opportunities for us to pass on and to empower the lives of the students around us. They might be so minimal for you. They might be so minimal for you to pass off an opportunity to lead worship, to lead a prayer meeting, to stand at a booth. They could be so minimal for you in terms of that you get to do these things every day or every week. But to create an opportunity for you, for students to step up and to be engaged. It's absolutely, again, it's one of the most intoxicating things I've ever had a chance to do. One of the things that we do at Cornerstone is we lead worship every morning. Basically, we start our day with chapel. And I have kids from grades as young as grade 2, Asher and Declan, who come up and help just lead worship. And they lead, Good Father or Build Your Kingdom Here, and they sing off tune, and their rhythm isn't great. But at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. We're creating opportunities and platforms and spaces for them to be engaged, and bringing these kinds of experiences into their world. And when you can develop another person and put that power and that opportunity into their hearts, it's absolutely life-changing. Peter Benson runs an organization in the States, and he does this great TED Talk. It's about 18 minutes long, which is all TED Talks are about 18 minutes long. And he talks about spark and how kids thrive. And so he says that every kid has a spark. And so it's about spending time and opportunity to connect with them, to have enough real-life conversation with a student in order to understand what are their passions, what are their gifts, what are their talents, what are their abilities, what is it they dream about, what's on their hearts. So we've got to have that conversation. It isn't about just plugging all the areas of life that we want to do. If we want to do incarnational ministry, we've got to get down on the ground. We've got to figure out, do you want to build a puzzle? Do you want to play games? It's not about what I want to do today. It's about what do you want to do today, and how can I spend time with you? How can I come be where you are? And then to hear their heart and to hear their passions and to hear their dreams. And then he says this, it's just this really unique formula, which is such a profound challenge to us as churches and to us as ministry leaders. He says, 1 spark plus 3 spark champions equals a world changer. So 1 spark plus 3 spark champions, and a spark champion is someone who this student knows is going to be there for them, who's going to champion them, who's going to open up opportunities for them, who's going to believe in them, who's going to give them opportunities to succeed and to fail. And so if we have 1 spark plus 3 champions, 3 spark champions, we have a world changer. And he says the challenging thing is, and the unfortunate thing is that most kids can have 1. Very few, less than 50% can identify 2 spark champions in their life. And he says almost none, less than a quarter of kids, can identify 3 spark champions. 3 people in their lives who are radically committed to them, who are radically dedicated to figuring out ways and opportunities to empower and to grow and to develop them. To understand that if we ask our kids, what are your passions? What are you deeply motivated toward? What are the kinds of dreams and the ideas that you have? How do you want to make a difference in this world? How many of us would be able to name a teenager and name their passion like right now? How many of us would be able to name 2 teenagers or 3 teenagers? How many of us would be able to think of a teenager who would say that about us? We might be able to say that about them, but the important thing is that they actually need to be able to say that about us. They need to be able to say, yeah, Adam knows who I am, and he knows my passions, and he gives me opportunities to get involved and be engaged and to even fail, but he's going to be there to make sure that I pick myself up and move forward. So 3 spark champions. If we want to radically transform a city, if you want to radically transform a church, if you want to radically transform a generation, what it would look like for us to think about every kid having 3 intentional adults relationships that you guys could pour into. I think about that, we were talking about this as a small group, right? It doesn't have to be rocket science again. I'm going to team up with my buddy Steve and say, Steve, you've got 2 kids, I've got 3 kids. I'll pay you an extra $5. But basically what's going to happen is I'm going to take his kids for ice cream and he's going to take my kids for ice cream. And so between myself, I'm going to be a parent champion for my kids. He's going to be an adult champion for my kids. And then I'm going to connect with my teachers more than just on parent-teacher interviews. I'm going to walk into my teachers' offices on a regular basis. I'm going to build relationships with them. I'm going to shoot them an email. What are my kids learning? How are they engaging? Did you know that my kid did this the other night? Could you keep an eye out for this? And ways that we can be building relationships into each other's lives. So I want to give you one more question, similar to the redeemable moments. But what are the ways that you can take everyday opportunities that you have, and generate relationships, intentional relationships, and meaningful championship opportunities for you to engage in the people around us? So just everyday opportunities, and then I want to leave you with one more challenge this afternoon before we wrap up. So everyday opportunities. This is not aspirational anymore. Okay. Like we were talking about before, this is not things that we want to do. This is about taking a little bit of an audit in your life and thinking, okay, God, I do this like every day, I do this every week, I do these things every month. What are ways that you can be inviting and pulling in students to your world? Go, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. All right. 45 seconds. Over here, real quick. Everyday opportunities. What do you guys got? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So easiest way to change that, it's open-ended questions, right, guys? So it's the difference between, Lucas, how was your day? Good. Lucas, tell me about your day, right? Totally different story, right? I mean, I get recess for 10 minutes, but that's cool, right? Whatever. And so, what else? What else can you guys do? What else do you do every day or every week that you can be creating intentional opportunities to live consistent, faithful lives with students? Write letters to grandkids. FaceTime. Talk when they're in the room. You know what? I was going to hit that. Thanks for bringing that up. You know what? One of the things that I've realized about youth ministry is that it happens after I want to go to bed. Okay? And so, you know what? It's like I've kind of like adjusted my world. Like I'm, growing up to be mature now, right? And it's like I kind of want to go to bed around 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, kind of settle down for the evening. I wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, read for a little while, whatever the case is, right? And it's like, you know what? When I go away on a student retreat, nothing happens until 10. Right? Then we decide we want to go to McDonald's and have a car rally around Regina. And so but we build relationships, we have fun, we lower down the windows, and we blast really fun Christian music, but it's all good. But yeah, I'm just like, goodness gracious, we got to do it on their time, right? We've got to do it on their time. Again, just a really fascinating kind of experience in my own journey over the last 18 months is that when I'm in school, we have chapel in the morning, which is when I get to connect with the students, and then all the kids go to class, so I don't really get to spend any time with the students when they're in class, and then we have lunch. And so then, I have a decision to make. I can go hang out with all the adults up in the staff room, or I can go sit in the pit with the kids. Well, guess what? If I want to be incarnational, I've got to be in relationship with them. I've got to go sit where they are. I've got to go spend time with them. And that's a choice that we need to make between spending time with our own friends sometimes versus choosing to go be where kids are. Other opportunities. Everyday kind of stuff. That is legit, man. You can do that. You can play video games with kids, just not like hours and hours and hours and hours. Because that's like, yeah. But you can teach them responsible gaming. Exactly. It's very good. Yeah. You got to be at their stuff. Guys, you got to be at their stuff. Go to their games. Go to their games. Just as much as this is, a challenge for us to do something, my goodness, man, to add one more thing to our teenagers' lives is crazy talk. And then we're looking at them like they're not busy. They don't even know what busy is. To them, they're insane. All right? Their world, they feel crazy busy. And it's nothing for us to just take 30, 45 minutes. You don't need to stay for the whole 2-hour hockey game, right? Just go show up. Tell them that you've been there. Make a point of making sure that they see you, right? Be that crazy fan with your face painted. What else? I'm tricking you guys. Anybody? Yep, it's a big deal. Okay, I'm gonna. This is just like, this is not even fair. How many of you eat every day? Yeah, every day. You eat. There's moments when I don't eat, right? But you eat every day. You eat twice a day. Probably. 3 times more like it, maybe more. But I guarantee you have at least one meal a day. And friends, you eat, they eat, just eat together. It's not that hard. You eat, they eat, you eat together. Take them out for lunch. Buy their lunch. If you want to start a radical youth ministry, in a church, I would do 2 things. Absolutely mind-blowing. I'd need about, $3,000. Could start a youth ministry for $3,000. Sound fun? I want season tickets to the Broncos. Right? Do you know how much time you could spend with a student? Half the games. 2 sets of season tickets. So what's that, $1,200? $1,400? Right, for 2 sets of season tickets, and then another $1,500 for popcorn, coffee, and lunches. Right, that you can take the kids out and visit. $3,000, and you could build real life incarnational ministry right here, and create the opportunity. Not just not one person. Have 2 sets of season tickets in the back. Say, folks, if you want to build into a teenager's life this week, contact the office. We'd love to hook you up with a set of tickets. Or if you want to take a student out for lunch, there's prepaid MasterCards in the foyer, and we'll just you just let us know, and we'll keep it loaded for you. $50. Take a kid anywhere you want to go. You do that a couple of times over the course of the year, these kids are going to love you guys, and they're going to build relationships, and you're going to have opportunity to talk about life and talk about their fun things and talk about their struggles. And half the time you're going to be talking about math and volleyball and whatever the case is, but at some point they're going to look at you. They're going to have that moment. They're going to be driving in the car and say, man, why do we do this? What's the reason behind all of this? Or maybe they'll look at you and say, man, I see Jesus in you. I see Jesus in you, and I want him. How do I have that? How do I get that? The thing is so unique. I'm not just making this stuff up. You guys know, and I haven't been talking too much about the Bible this afternoon. But I look at Paul. Last night I did a little fun thing. Just as I was thinking about this whole idea of mentoring and relationship building and incarnational ministry. It'd be worth your while to read through the Pauline epistles So just read through the books of Paul and notice all the times that he talks about other people who are engaged in the ministry. He talks about a guy named Tychicus and how he's this beloved brother. And if Timothy wasn't around, Tychicus was the guy that he would be sending out. He talks about Timothy, my true son in the faith. And the amount of time and the opportunities and the space and the ways that he invested in Timothy over the years. You read through the book of Romans, just that chapter 16, so many times we skip over these things. But that chapter 16 and first 11 verses where Paul just starts rifling through, hey man, say hi to all these people, say thank you to all these people. Oh yeah, don't forget this person over here. They helped me out. They worked so hard. They gave their lives for the sake of the gospel. They almost died for this. Paul was naming them off by names, these relationships, these people that he had built in times and opportunities, relationships that he has created over the years of his ministry. And then he challenges Timothy at the very end of his ministry, both Paul's ministry as he's sort of finishing off in 2 Timothy in chapter 2. And this is the challenge for us. This is the challenge for us today as we think about what it means to reach across the generations. He says, you then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus. You be strengthened by the ministry and the grace that is in Christ Jesus. But he says, don't stop there. It's not just about your own strength. It's not just enough that you're standing firm. It's not just enough that you're representing a life of faithfulness. He says, but what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men. Entrust to faithful men. And so here, this is the beginning of multiplication. Up to this point, it was Paul and Timothy. Paul and Timothy and Tychicus. And now he's saying, Timothy, I'm passing the torch to you, buddy. Everything that you've heard from me, so I've talked about it with everybody else, now it's your turn to start passing this stuff on. And the cycle begins. And now Timothy's going to start pouring in his life into other ministers of the gospel, and so this is the beginning of the work, where you and I need to keep passing it on, because we are in danger of forgetting. Our churches are emptying in droves. It's kind of scary, but you have a whole generation of people. 2 generations, the millennials and the next generation down, the Gen Zs. If you learn about them and understand their values and understand how they function and how they operate and their dreams and their passions, these guys are world changers. Absolutely, they're world changers. I can't speak enough good about them. But they need some champions. They need some people who are going to come alongside of them and create opportunities and develop them. And not have them fit into our boxes, but for us to get down on their levels and say, hey, do you want to build puzzles? Do you want to play games? How are we going to do this? And then create those opportunities, that incarnational opportunity to live consistently in front of them. And then when the time is right, we can share the faith and the reasons that we have with them. And we can watch the gospel take their lives. One of the unique things about our generation, to close, is, even for me, when I was leaving high school, to come out to the other side of the country was like this radical thing. Like my mom's like, "There's no way you're going to like Saskatchewan," right? I was the first person in my family to really to leave Newfoundland. Like my parents left, like goodness gracious, they're like 3 hours away from home their whole life, right? And your generation, probably not all that mobile, right? I mean, you guys have probably gone on a few trips, a few vacations, that kind of stuff. But we hear those stories of people who have left and gone to, Thailand and Cambodia and these kinds of places, and they're few and far between. Well, one of the uniquenesses, of course, of our generation is that we're more global than ever. Lucas will grow up in a global world. He will grow up with students of different ethnicities. His school is already filled with him. Last night, Lucas came into my room and said hi to me in Swahili because one of his classmates, Esperance, is from the Congo. And so he's already, at 7 years old, exposed to different cultures and ethnicities from around our world in ways that you and I will never be. And then through things like social media and technology, they'll be connected in ways that you and I will never be. And so the opportunity is ripe. The opportunity is right there. But we've got to figure out how we're going to build those intentional relationships so that we can pass on the faith. So if we can get one of their sparks to catch fire, I believe that God can continue to keep his church alive and healthy into the next generation. Let's pray together. Father God, we thank you for this incredible opportunity that we have to gather around your word and gather around together this weekend. And I pray, Father, that this afternoon we would have just been just maybe reminded, prompted in our spirit, Father, that we don't have to go very far to do the work of the gospel. Maybe just to our kitchen table. And so, God, I pray that you would be opening up our hearts and our eyes and our ears to opportunities that exist all around us every day. Father, and to have patience as we watch your seed get planted and then take root and then grow, and Father, and produce fruit in the lives of the students and the families around us. Father, help us to just be a gardener like you, walking in the midst of people and to do life together so that, Lord, life on life and faith could be passed from heartbeat to heartbeat. Lord, we pray for the students and for the families in Swift Current. And we pray, Father, that this place could be a place of hospitality, not just inside the building, but in all the hearts that are represented here. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. Thanks for having me out this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.